the last guy, after like whatever, 2 hours, 3 hours? I mean, it's awesome. But we were like talking, it's like, do we want to go? But we feel like we got something to say.
All right.
So we'll be quick and we'll say this, but it's important. It's a little bit different than what we've heard. We've heard incredible lessons. We're going to talk about mentoring. So I've known Kalah since she was in Kids Kingdom. I used to be her Kids Kingdom teacher. And she was greatly impacted by the lessons, especially the crafts I used to make. You remember, right? So she remembers all of it. It shaped her life. But mentoring is something that is it's obviously ingrained into our fellowship, synonymous to us in a lot of ways with discipleship. But as professionals, I want to look at, I feel like some ways that we can get tripped up when it comes to mentoring and then our concept of discipleship. So today is my spiritual birthday. So I know, my wife sent me a little text and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. 24 years ago today, I was baptized in a freezing creek in Boulder, Colorado. There's about 8 people there. And, I was a young professional. I had my own company, my own video production company. And I remember seeing K&N for the first time. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And caught the dream. And I was just all about, as we've talked about many times, trying to put that sail out and letting God lead me. And he did. He led me to Tokyo. The dream was I was going to, run the K&N stuff for the Pac Rim is what they used to call it back in the day. And that didn't quite work out the way that I thought it would. But what we've heard repeatedly, I think, from different speakers is that if you follow those dreams, God blesses you in more ways than you can ever imagine. And I met my wife there, and she was actually baptized on the exact same day, opposite side of the world, same year. So it's her spiritual birthday too. So that took 4 years for me to realize that dream. But what I want to share with you, I think we've gotten that message, that if you follow, the Spirit, that God will bless you. One thing that I did not do is I didn't really seek out mentorship during that time. I had disciplers that were assigned to me, but I wasn't actively seeking, especially older men in my life. I was just going after this dream. And I was getting discipled along the way, thank God. That would have been a mess, but I wasn't actively seeking this out. So let's look in, I think there's a psalm here that there's a lot of psalms about mentorship, but Psalm 78 is one that really came to mind when I was looking at this. You can turn there. This is this translation. I didn't put the translation down. Psalm 78. It says, "My dear people, hear my teaching. Listen to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth with a parable. I will utter hidden things, things from old, things that we have heard and known, things that our ancestors have told us. We will not hide them from their descendants. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, his power and the wonders he has done. He decreed statutes for Jacob and established the law in Israel, which he commanded our ancestors to teach their children, so the next generation would know them, even the children yet to be born. And they in turn would tell their children. Then they would put their trust in God and would not forget his deeds." For me, it's, I can see God's plan a lot more clearly when I see sometimes the opposite of that in the world. I see it broken. I go, oh, and I was thinking about, mentorship, and we read the stories all the time of society breaking down, especially kind of inner city, where the family dynamic has broken down and there isn't this generational relationship. I came across this story I thought was really, really interesting. It was an NPR story from 2013 and it was about the Kruger National Park in South Africa. And they had an elephant problem, believe it or not. You would think there's an elephant shortage, but they had too many elephants. So they allowed hunters to go in and kill all the adult, and especially the male elephants. And then it goes on to say the orphan male elephants became teenagers. They were relocated to different parks, but they were clueless about what normal behavior looked like. When their testosterone levels spiked, I have a 16-year-old boy, so I can attest to this. When their testosterone levels spiked, the orphan males turned aggressive. In one park, they savagely killed 36 rhinos. Park rangers watched in horror as elephants knocked over rhinos, trampled them, and then drove tusks through their chests. The situation was completely out of control. The rangers brought 6 adult bulls back into the herd, and the behavior dramatically changed. So, discipleship is what we're built on as a church in a lot of ways, right? These discipling partnerships. I'm really concerned now in 24 years as a disciple, especially the younger generation. I see a lack of an eagerness to pursue a mentoring relationship with an older person. I really feel like, this room is evidence of it. There's tremendous talent. There's tremendous ability like never before in a generation, but there doesn't seem to be the eagerness or the realization of how important it is to have that older mentor in your life. I think Kayla's going to talk a little bit here about that eagerness.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Oh, and I messed up the mic. So as Jonathan was talking about, can you hear me? Oh, just grab it. Okay. Don't be scared. There we go. All right. As Jonathan was talking about, so I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story of a marketing agency called St. Rock Media, and I really wanted to. I'm young, I'm ambitious, and all those different things that Jonathan's talking about, and so I started my company 2 years ago, and I knew that in the beginning I wanted to and so I was like, okay, great. How do I do that? And initially, I was like, okay, I want to work with disciples today. And so again, my company is called St. Rock Media, and the reason why is because it's an homage to Peter, and I love his zeal, his skill set, but also when he made mistakes, it didn't cripple him. And I knew that for myself. I'm like, okay, I know I'm young, I know I'm going to make mistakes, but I want to have an attitude of not letting that deter me from what I'm ultimately trying to do. And so I went to Jonathan after the 2017 Youth and Family Conference, and I sent him an email back in, when was this? This was back in September. Okay, well, it was basically, right, it was 2017, and then I stalked him at church, because we're both in Denver. I stalked him at church for another 6 months before he would say hello to me. And there we go. And then another 6 months went by before we actually started the relationship. So it took about a year, but from the time that I said, hey, I'm excited, I want to yeah, okay, you can help us. Pretty much. I mean, that's how it went. And so, but at this time, I was talking about mentoring. I had already found a mentor. Her name is Nia Mathis, this amazing corporate attorney for Verizon, and she does a lot of, yeah, there you go. Oh, yeah, you know Nia. So she was amazing. She is amazing. She has this huge family, and she's, doing what I thought I would want to do. And she's a, black sister, and really look up to her. And when I was coming to Disciples Today, that was not necessarily what I was looking for. Jonathan and Nia are two very different people, as you might imagine. And, yeah, right. And so it wasn't what I was looking for from Disciples Today. But Jonathan's going to continue on.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I understand. the point we're trying to make here is the difference between aspirational mentoring, right? I want to be that. I can see that. That's who I want to be. And accepting mentoring from somebody who's probably not like you, who doesn't look like you, who doesn't think like you, right? Kayla is, I'm the old white guy now, right? And she just wanted to help. She just wanted to use her talents, her ambition, what she's been her drive, that sale I was talking about. I skipped that whole thing for probably 10, 15 years of my life, where I'm like, I found some aspirational guys, and I'm like, I want to be like that. But I didn't really allow other people that were different from me to mentor me. And it really handicapped me a lot in my career. And now that I'm older, I can look back and I can go, okay, that was a mistake. And I want to challenge here the older guys too, because we have a few of those in the room. And I think what I've found for me personally as I get older is my like-mindedness has become one of the driving things that I look for. I look for people that are like me, that I want to be around. There aren't that many older guys that I can turn to for mentoring. I've had a 15-year mentoring relationship with Roger Lamb, and that's been incredible. But he's very much like me. We actually had the very first same job together in the Air Force. He worked for Armed Forces Radio and Television Service, and so did I. And he lived overseas growing up, went to high school, so did I. So we have all these connections, and we just gel. But what I found as I get older is how many different, not like-minded people am I allowing into my group? And that's concerning. I see our church kind of, especially some of the older guys, breaking into these little cliques, of like-mindedness. And that's not necessarily the best thing. Even last night, we were joking about this. Sam and Peter, and bro, I didn't even get your name. You were sitting there. Matt. And see, that's my point. Peter and I work in technology. So we just instantly fell into our lanes and started talking technology. Boom, 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 boom. For what, 45 minutes? And I never even got a chance to talk to Matt, who works in finance, right? Because he's just different, a different kind of profession than me. And I missed that opportunity. So what we're encouraging a couple things, a couple points here. If you're young, go after older mentorship, right? If you're older, be more open to having people that are different than you in a mentoring type of relationship. Amen? Okay, final point we want to talk about is, what are we mentoring for? What's the purpose of our mentoring?
So I'm going to be a little brutally honest, if that's okay. Recently, I started working with a client in the church, which that's a whole nother conversation and a whole nother topic that we can get into. But the project didn't go as I hoped, and it didn't go as well as I wanted it to go. And it being a client in the church, Jonathan reached out to me and was like, hey, we have our weekly calls, because I work with disciples today, so we have our weekly calls, we're touching base, and we're going over statistics. But Jonathan pulled me aside after the call and said, hey, let me give you some input. I was like, okay, thanks, Jonathan. He provided some really important feedback for me. And, again, kind of talking about why I even approached Disciples Today in the first place. I did it because I wanted to build my brand within the church. Let's just be honest about it. I wanted to have a great reputation. And with Jonathan being able to come to me and say, hey, this is something I want you to pay attention to and something that I want you to focus on and to consider, I really had to wrestle, and I was really grateful for that conversation, because I really felt like Jonathan was taking care of me and looking out for me. And one thing that he said to me at the end of that conversation was, Kayla, you're going to be here for a long time, and these relationships are important. And I think, to me, again, coming into that relationship, that was not what I was expecting. that I was expecting that I was going to need to put my best foot forward, prove my value. And I think at the end of that, I was embarrassed, not messing up in that relationship. And I felt really grateful for Jonathan, not just having my back, but seeing my value and seeing what potential I have, and caring enough about me, not just our business stuff, but caring enough about me as a person, to want to make sure that I can be my best for God, so that I can be my best for the kingdom. And I really loved Jonathan after that conversation. Well, it was different. It was different before that. And it was very, work relationship oriented. And I feel very connected. I feel very inspired by Jonathan in that conversation. And it's really put me in a position to where I can be my best, like I said, for the kingdom. And it's not just about me and what I can do, but it's what I can learn as well. So thank you, Jonathan.
All right, well, that was incredibly brave. I appreciate you sharing that. We'll close out with this, and then we'll hit some lunch here. The final thought around what Kalah shared is, I've worked most of my career in the corporate world and for some pretty aggressive organizations. I worked for Goldman Sachs. I've worked for the military. And those organizations allow you to fail and almost expect you to fail. And they expect you to fail fast and forward, right? We've heard all these terms in our work environment. This is my personal opinion. I don't feel like we give enough grace in that way professionally in the church. We don't allow, if you're a professional in the church and you try to work for the church and you get something wrong, your reputation is shot 9 times out of 10. Okay? This is hard, all right? So it's emotional. So I think, we feel it. You can probably tell because we live it. That's why we're kind of emotional here. But I think if you're in the church and you're working with somebody, just like in the professional world, you got to expect there's going to be successes and there's going to be failures. And we got to work through that. And we got to encourage each other. That's all we're really saying. So as we continue to work together professionally, let's give each other grace and let's learn and give each other the ability, because really what we're mentoring towards is to becoming like Christ. And if you look at the ministries of anybody in the Bible, they weren't that successful when they were alive, right? They could have all been considered failures, but God had other plans in mind, right? And we all know that God's strength is made perfect in weakness. And so I want to make sure that we highlight that. So just to wrap up here, 3 quick points. If you're young, go after this older mentorship. It's absolutely critical. Got to have it. If you're older, be careful about the like-mindedness, and let's open up to some other thoughts. And then let's also allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to fail, and to learn from that and improve and get better and become more like Christ. Amen? Amen. Let's go eat.